Shabbat Shalom Hebrews and Shalomi homies everywhere across the world. My name's T. You guys know that. Glad to have you here. Get your Bibles. That's what this is about. This is not an I tell you about the Bible. This is a we read the Bible together. Okay? I came out of churchianity where every week we'd walk into church holding one of these, and most of the time we'd hold it. That's it. And the pastor might say, turn to Matthew 5. Okay, and so here in Matthew 5 we say, I'm just picking a verse. Whoever puts away his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. Okay, so let's talk about divorce. And then here's an hour of the pastor's opinion on divorce, not the Father's word on divorce. So that's not what this is. And by the way, not a pastor, not a ministry. Brother T, Sideways iPhone, the Bible. Okay? That being said, I'm humbled and amazed by what the Father does and how he does it, and the way that he uses so many people, myself included to a very small degree, to affect real positive change in other people's lives. I'm humbled and amazed is the phrase that has been on my mind for weeks now. Humbled and amazed. And so I give thanks regularly that I get to do this, and that we get to do this. So, and I really enjoy getting y'all's emails. I think it's so cool when people are like, hey man, I haven't been in my Bible in a decade. I saw one of your videos. Thank you. No, don't thank me. You thank him. All praise goes to him, because this guy, not special. That guy, the most special. Okay? As I've said before, this works because he is who he is, not because I am who I am. Okay? Cool. So get your Bibles out, because that's what we do here. We also hawk loogies, because of the chemtrails, man. Don't you just love the internet? So last week we left off at Exodus 20, at the end of Exodus 20, the 10 Commandments. And so if you're interested in that, all of these are on a playlist, the Shabbat playlist here, Shabbat, S-H-A-B-B-A-T. Anyway, and so we left off at the end of the 10 Commandments. I think we had a pretty good discussion on that. If you're curious about ye old 10 Commandments, go back one video and watch them, okay? They were all in the playlist. From Genesis 1, in the beginning, God, in the beginning, Elohim, all the way to now, Exodus 20. It's all in the previous playlist, and we've made it this far. We have this much left to go, and we're going. But we're about 8% done, so that's something. So let's do this thing. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, the beginning of Exodus 21, a lot of people, myself included at first, have issues with. Because depending on which translation you have, it either says servant or slave. Exodus 21, chemtrail cough. Exodus 21 has been used by people with disingenuous hearts to make the argument that the Bible condones slavery. I'll say this. If we look at the context here, okay, because remember that when this was written, Moshe didn't stop and go, that's the end of 19. All right, cool. Let's drink some wine, come back. All right, let's write 20. No, these were long, unbroken strings of oral tradition and story. They were then codified, written down, okay? So if we go back just one chapter, the beginning of 20, okay? And Elohim spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery. I am the Father God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land where you were slaves. That's the context we are in, okay? Remember who I am, he's telling the Israelites. That's us. I am the Father. I brought you out of the house of slavery. Okay, fast forward one chapter to 21 where we are right now. These are the right rulings which you are to set before them. Okay, this is Yahweh talking to Moshe, talking to Moses. Okay. When you buy a Hebrew servant, he serves 6 years, and in the 7th he goes free for naught. He don't owe you a dime. Okay? If you buy a Hebrew servant. Now, we can just stop there and think for a hot minute. Think about like a bondsman in the early colonial Americas, a bondsman. A bondsman would come and serve, I believe it was 7 years. And at the end of 7 years, he had learned a trade, he got the clothes on his back, and his tools, in which a lot of cases were a knife and an axe, or maybe a couple of other things, right? He got his clothes, his tools, and his freedom after 7 years, okay? But you would buy a bondsman. You would buy them to bring them in to a certain extent. If you work for me, I'm buying you. I'm buying a portion of your time, aren't I? Okay. So understand here that we are not talking about, in my estimation, my understanding of this, and we'll get to more of the context here in a minute. Need to hydrate. My wife is of the opinion that this cough that I have, that I've had since I got here for 3 months, that it could be vocal strain, because I've done a lot of talking for the last 3 months since I got here. She may be right. Done more videos, longer videos since I've got here than I've ever done before. And then all the Patreon content that most of y'all don't see either. And this is not a Patreon plug, I'm just saying there's twice as much content as you think there is, because there's stuff over there too. So she might be right, it could be vocal strain. Anyway, so this is the context we're talking about here. Is not people, we're not buying people forever, okay? Although, truthfully, there are some difficulties in here. When you buy a Hebrew servant, he serves 6 years, and in the 7th, he goes out free for naught, for nothing. He don't owe you a dime. If he comes in by himself, he goes out by himself. Simple enough. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. Okay. So if you bought me and Hami at the end of 7 years, we both go. Okay? She doesn't stay with you. We both go. If his master has given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children are her master's, and he goes out by himself. Again, pretty point blank. Okay? You buy me, you give me a wife, I sire 5 children, now it's the year 7, I can go. My children and my wife that you gave to me still belong to you, and I can leave. I'll tell you, here, I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm not in love with that concept. I'll also tell you, here, there's probably 2 things going on. One is, I'm sure there's more context around this that I don't truthfully understand yet, and I'm always willing to admit that. And 2, part of that I think is ego, my ego. Because I don't really have to like it, do I? It's not on me to like it. It's not whether or not I like it. Oh, I like this, so I'll do it. I like what the Father says, so I'll do it. It's not how this relationship between he and I works. He says jump, I say how high. But here, I don't love that. Hell, I don't even like it. But there it is. And if the servant says truly, I love my master and my wife and my children, let me not go out free. I'm not leaving without my wife and kids. Then his master shall bring him before Elohim, present him to the Father, and shall bring him to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. The door or the doorpost. The reason for that, in my mind, is just you got to have something to put back the ear against so you can poke a hole through it. Pierced ear is a sign of indentured servitude. There you go. That's biblical. It marks you. It marks you. So, and he shall serve him forever. So your options here are you can have your ear pierced and stay within my household and be with your women and children, or you can go out a free man of your own accord. Remember, we're talking servants here, not slaves. So I don't know. A servant of my house, right? You have to protect and provide for your servants. I would. So there's definitely a cost-benefit analysis here. But, and when a man sells his daughter to be a female servant, she does not go out as the male servants do. If she is displeasing in the eyes of her master who has engaged her to himself, then he shall let her be ransomed. He shall have no authority to sell her to a foreign people because of him deceiving her. So he can't buy her, go, I don't like you, then sell her to somebody else. Right? He brings her into his household, and he's less than pleased. She goes free. But she also, at the end of 7 years, does not go free. So I guess it's at the discretion of the master at this point. And if he has engaged her to his son, he is to do to her as is the right of daughters. Treat her like a daughter. And if he takes another wife, her food, her covering, and her marriage rights are not to be diminished. Yeah. That's straight up biblical, because we're reading the Bible. Multiple wives are biblical. Multiple wives is not something that I think anybody should do, unless there's a dire need. And I think in 2019 America, there's not a dire need. Your genetic material is not just absolutely requiring that it be passed on right now, right? The health of the species or the tribe is not at stake currently. Should that change? Who knows? There's not a massive war going on where there's a bunch of women and children who do not have a man to help provide and protect for them. Not necessary. So, however, if you were to take more than one wife, you could not do that to the detriment of your existing wife, right? Her situation remains the same. You do not diminish her for the sake of another. Okay. And if he does not do these three for her, then she shall go out for naught without silver. Okay, so if you don't do these three things for her, her covering, her food, and her marriage rights, that's like, yeah, go team. Also, legacy. You don't do those three things, then she can leave for naught without silver. No money changes hands, I'm leaving. He who strikes a man so that he dies shall certainly be put to death. Okay, so let's pause here for a moment. The idea here of servitude and the Hebrews. Again, I don't like this. I am not currently interested, nor do I hope to ever be interested in the idea of having servants. I like tribe and community. I think it's based upon a mutual relationship between the two of us. But I think the thing to understand here is that the Israelites, the children of Jacob, Israel, had just come out of bondage in the land of Mitzrayim, where they had forgotten who they were, which is why the Father shows up to remind them, which is why Yahweh shows up and leads them by, a column of smoke and fire, a pillar of smoke and fire, out of Mitzrayim toward the promised land. Okay? It's why he shows up on Mount Sinai to deliver them the 10 Commandments, to remind them just who you are. And these are how you conduct yourself. These laws are how you conduct yourself to be pleasing in my eye. Because they'd forgotten. They'd been in bondage in Egypt. Okay? So we talked last week about polytheistic cultures in like Egypt with all their multiple gods, which is why the first commandment in here is you have no other. The first commandment of the 10 is there are no gods but God, right? You put no mighty ones before me. Well, now he's saying to Moshe, remind the people of this. If you're going to do these things with servants and with households and with women and wives and all this, that there are rules to this. You cannot put somebody into servitude forever like you have been. You've been in bondage in Egypt in perpetuity until I rescued you out of it. So here's some rules, bro. 7 years, okay? 7 years. And if at the end of 7 years you've built something due to your servitude that you don't want to walk away from, okay, you don't have to. You have rights, okay? You can keep your wife, you can keep your children, all that. Is that ideal? No. No, I don't think in today's terms, no. But again, it's not what I think, it's what he says. And I would just praise the Father that I don't need to be subjected to any of that situationally right now because it's a non-issue. Thank you, Father, that's a non-issue. If it ever was, at least we know how to conduct ourselves. But it's a non-issue. You know, and it's... I think it paints a picture between the Father and his people is like, look, you were slaves, right? I am, the beginning of 20. I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of slavery, right? Remember where you came from, kid. Don't go out being a-holes to other people. Don't go be jerks to other people. Like, you just came from this. So it's putting boundaries on this relationship between the master and the servant, right? Because they had just come out of some pretty bad stuff regarding the master and the servant. So, again, I don't like it here. Like, this does not, I don't like it. And so praise the Father that I don't have to do anything with this. That's awesome, because I'm less than ideal for me. Ultimately, doesn't matter to me, doesn't matter for me, whether it's ideal to me or not. It's his word. But I'm just happy that I'm not in a situation where right now, 4-dimensional space-time, that I have to put any of this into action. Praise the Father. Okay. He who strikes a man so that he dies shall certainly be put to death. Okay. Didn't Moshe beat a man over the head with a rock? Okay. But if he did not lie in wait, but Elohim delivered him into his hand, then I shall appoint a place for you where he is to flee. It was not premeditated. Maha, okay. Has Moshe not fleed? Fleen? He's fleed, right? Not like he has fleas, but he is fleeing. Flowed? No, not flowed. Right? Okay, so, again, more laws, more rules. But when a man acts presumptuously against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you are to take him even from my slaughter place to die. Murder, right? We talked last week about murder and the crime of the heart that murder is, right? And so this says, when a man acts presumptuously against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, there's no place you can hide. You can go even into my temple, my slaughter place, and pull him out so that he can be judged. Like, there's the ends of the earth. There's no place you can hide. So if you commit murder with treachery in your heart, there's no place for you to run. The Father's saying you can even go into my temple to get him. Now remember, right, only the priests are supposed to go in and out of the temple. Well, the tabernacle, once that's established, and then the high priest, the Holy of Holies. But the Father's saying you can go in there. If somebody murdered somebody, go in there and get them out now so that they can face judgment. Doesn't matter. So that's an opinion or a judgment by the Father on murder. That's how he feels about it. And he who strikes his father or mother shall certainly be put to death. And he who kidnaps a man and sells him, or if he is found in his hand, shall certainly be put to death. Remember when Jacob's older brothers were like, hey man, we'll just throw him in a well, right? And then they get found out. They're like, oh no, we're certainly going to be put to death. Like, they're going to kill us. I think that it's important that we understand here that a lot of what we are getting now was understood orally. But now that we have these nations of Israel coming together, we have to have these laws codified by the Father, right? Because again, the beginning of 21 is the Father speaking to Moshe, saying, these are the right rulings which you are to set before them, the children of Israel, us, right? This is the right ruling, the judgments of, if there's a question of, this is the right ruling about it. This is how we conduct ourselves. And he who curses his father or his mother shall certainly be put to death. Now, there's a Torah teaching on this in the Messianic movement and the Orthodox Jewish movement, that all these put to deaths, these are things that you tell your kids when they're young so that they go, ah, and then don't do it. If you strike your father, you'll be put to death. And then that kid thinks real hard about whether he's going to hit daddy next time or not. I don't know how I feel about that interpretation, because it says right here on the page, put to death. It does not say you should threaten your children with death if they hit you. It says shall be put to death. Okay. It's pretty hardcore. I'm just saying, that's pretty hardcore. But again, yay mercy, right? Thank you for the covering blood of Yeshua. Because there ain't a one of us that's going to do this perfectly. And like I said, there's parts in here that I'm like, thank you, Father, that I don't have to. So, okay. And when men strive together, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die but is confined to his bed, if he rises again and walks outside with his staff, then he who struck him shall be innocent. If I punch you in the face and you fall over and then you're bedridden for a while, as long as you get up and walk again, I'm good. But he pays only for lost time and sees that he is completely healed. So I pay you for your downtime and I make sure you're taken care of. Yeah, how's that for some justice? Like, that's serious stuff. Makes you think twice next time you want to punch somebody in the face. I'm responsible for your well-being, even after I punch you. And when a man strikes his male or female servant with a rod so that he dies under his hand, he shall certainly be punished. But if he remains alive a day or two, he is not punished, for he is his property. I hate that phrase. Fact. I really don't like that at all. We hold these rights to be inalienable, right? Inevitable, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal with certain inalienable rights. Yeah. And I believe that is a divinely inspired document, just as I clearly believe this is a divinely inspired document. So how do we reconcile that? I hate that word, property. I'm property of no man. I'm property of the Most High. The end. Now, we could make the argument that I'm blessed for that. And I would say, you're absolutely right that I'm blessed for that. What happens if you get yourself in a bad situation and you become property? Then what? Well, then at least there's some laws to govern that situation here. But yeah, less than ideal, man. But we're not going to skirt it. We're not going to pretend that it's not there. We're not going to not read it. Okay, moving on. Okay, worship band, bring it back up a little bit. Okay, dim the lights. Okay, yeah. No. That's BS. That's way more BS than me saying, hey, I don't like this at all. Or, guys, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. All men are created equal with certain inalienable rights. All women, I would add, all people are created equal with certain inalienable rights. And among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which originally said life, liberty, and property. And the reason it was changed from property to the pursuit of happiness, I believe, and there's a lot of back and forth between the founding fathers on this, was at that time, there was already a gigantic argument about the slavery issue in the United States. No man is property. No woman is property. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care where you come from. I don't care your socioeconomic status. I just don't care. It's less than ideal. And it's not just less than ideal. What I mean by that is, in situ, in reality, it sucks for the person on the other end of that. But it's not a situation you want to get yourself into in the first place. Which is why we talk about being wildly independent here at this channel. I will never let that happen to me and my people. I will never let that happen. And if by some fluke it does, deer rifle, 300 blackout. Not a deer rifle, 300 blackout. That way. 2 properties over. If it does happen, at least there's something that governs that relationship. But I'll tell you, I don't like this. That word property makes me bristle. Ugh. And when men strive, and they shall smite a pregnant woman, and her children come out, yet there is no injury, he shall certainly be punished accordingly, as the woman's husband lays upon him, and he shall give through the judges. If you're having an argument, 2 guys are having an argument, they're fighting, and there's a pregnant woman there, and she gets injured, as long as the kid comes out healthy, then the father of the child can lay whatever judgment he wants on you, as long as it passes through the judges. But if there is injury, then you shall give life for life. Let's stop there. New York, Virginia. Abortion is taking a life. The end. The end. And we can have the argument of, maybe at a certain first few weeks it's just a clump of cells. But the potentiality for life is a foregone conclusion. That's what it is. That's what it is. It's like if I pull a seedling out of the ground, it's like saying, well, that's not a plant. Well, yeah, the longer I let it grow, the more of a plant it's going to be, but it's still a plant right now. Okay? Yet we can get that here, but we can't understand that killing a child in the womb, half of America can't understand that killing a child in the womb, oh, no, that's a right to choose. Bull. And if you disagree with that, you can unclick the subscribe button and leave. Sorry, I'm not sorry. Don't care. It's taking a life. It's absolutely taking a life. The end. Now, we yet again have a biblical principle here. But if there is injury, then you shall give life for life. That was a life. By that onus, by that directive, that law, I would hate to be the person performing those abortions. A life for a life. It's disgusting. It's disgusting what is going on in this world today, as far as protecting the innocent, the unborn, and now the partial. I don't even want to talk about it. It disgusts me. It disgusts me. And I'm about this close to just being the guy you see on the 5 o'clock news because of this. Because I've had a child of mine aborted. Against my will. I didn't know about it before I met my wife. And the only hope I have there is that I will get to hold that baby when I get home again. And I still have anger in my heart towards her. Fact. And there's a whole bunch of context there that most of y'all will never know, and that's okay. But unequivocally, that's a life. That is a life. One of my sheep is pregnant. I can see her side move. It's like saying if I cut her open and pulled that thing out, it's not alive. That's not a baby sheep. Of course it is. It takes a real coward to kill a baby. I mean, a real coward. And I mean the lowliest creature on the planet to kill a baby. I'm going to stop there before I get really pissed off. A life for a life. It is a life. And this is why it's important that we read this book, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts, the parts that we don't like, the parts that we don't want to hear, the parts that are difficult to understand, the parts that we don't have the context or the understanding for yet. Because there are truths in here, there are principles in here that are for us. And the Father told Moshe, write this down for my people. And we are his people. But if there is injury, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, lash for lash. This is called the law of retaliation. How does this square with turn the other cheek, brother? The idea behind turning the other cheek, brother, is that I'm not going to let you push my buttons. Meekness, the meek shall inherit the earth, which we've talked about at this channel before, but yet again, by the hand of the Father, this channel has added thousands of people since the last time that we've talked. Meekness does not mean that you are quiet and submissive and non-violent and non-confrontational. Meekness is the power to utterly destroy something, but staying your hand and not. It is controlled power, is what meekness is. So the meek shall inherit the earth. Yeah. Those people with the wherewithal and the constitution of character that I know I can end you, but I'm going to stay my hand. That's meekness. And when Yeshua says turn the other cheek, he's saying don't let them push your buttons. Yeshua also said if you don't have a sword, sell your garment and buy one. Yeshua also made a whip, a bullwhip, and took it out on the money changers and the people buying and selling at the temple, flipping tables, grabbing people by the necks, beating people, and cleaning his Father's house. So it's not, well, just turn the other cheek, brother. No, don't let them push your buttons. Be meek, have power, have authority, but exercise restraint when needed. when they come for Yeshua in the Garden of Gethsemane, which we will get to, that's the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. We're not even close to it yet, but that's okay. When they come for him, these cowards in the middle of the night with 1,000 men, it's not a few men, it's 1,000 men. The Greek for the word there is 1,000 men. 1,000 men. And they walk up on him and they surround him, and of course he knows they're there. I bet you his situational awareness was incredible. I mean, we're talking about, the Creator indwelt in flesh. Yeah. And they say, we're here for Yeshua of Nazareth. And he says, who? They said, we're here for Yeshua of Nazareth. And he says, I am he. And 1,000 men get knocked over, blown over, ass over tea kettle, bodies rolling everywhere. And they fall to the ground, it says. And they fall to the ground at that utterance, I am he. Moshe asks the Father here in Exodus, what shall I tell them your name is? Tell them I am that I am. I am he. Don't talk to me about meekness. Don't talk to me about turning the other cheek. That's just completely misunderstood. It is restrained power and authority that when exercised is exercised with speed, surprise, and violence of action. Exodus 15:3. Yahweh is a warrior. Yahweh is his name. The law of retaliation, how does that square with turn the other cheek? That's exactly how, in my estimation. Because when we go, we go. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. Itchy leg. Long reading. And when a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he is to let him go free for the sake of the eye. If I blind you, you're free. You don't work for me anymore. And if he knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he is to let him go free for the sake of his tooth. Same deal. And when an ox gores a man or a woman to death, then the ox shall certainly be stoned, and its flesh is not eaten, and the owner of the ox is innocent. If an ox injures somebody, you kill it, you don't eat it. But it's not the owner's fault. However, if the ox was previously in the habit of goring and the owner had been warned but did not keep it confined, if the owner knew and didn't take precautions, so that a man or woman was killed, the ox is stoned and the owner is also put to death. Your stuff is your responsibility. Extreme ownership, bro. If a sin covering is laid upon him, then he shall give the ransom of his life, whatever is laid on him. Whether it has gored a son or gored a daughter, according to this right ruling, it is done to him. If the ox gores a male or female servant, he is to give to the master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox is stoned. And when a man opens a pit, or if a man digs a pit and does not cover it, an ox or donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit is to repay. He is to give silver to their owner, and the dead beast is his. Let's go back a couple verses. What is the price of a man, of a servant? 30 shekels of silver. Just remember that. We're going to see that again. 30 shekels of silver. If you dig a hole, cover it back up again, because if something falls in the hole, you're responsible for it. Okay, that's 33 and 34. 35, and when the ox of a man smites the ox of his neighbors and it dies, then they shall sell the live ox and divide the silver from it, and also divide the dead ox. Or if it was known that the ox was previously in the habit of goring, and its owner had not kept it confined, he shall certainly repay you ox for ox, while the dead beast is his. We're dealing with judgments here. How do we deal with one another? If this, then this. If this happens, then this happens. Why is this important? Well, I've told you all repeatedly, the Israelites were an agricultural people. If that chapter doesn't prove it, I don't know how else to prove it to you. Because it's not just oxen that we're dealing with here. In today's world, how many of us have oxen? Very few. But the principles still stand, okay? So that we can refer back to this if our neighbor or our tribesman or our family or whoever wrongs us, if something happens, what do? Well, we have these right rulings to refer to. We're long, but I'm going to go for 22. When a man steals an ox or a sheep, he shall slaughter it or sell it. He repays 5 cattle for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Don't steal. Remember that? If the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there is no guilt for his bloodshed, unless you live in one of the communist states, the United States of America, where you can be sued and or put in prison for defending your own home. Bull crap. There are not words to more strongly disagree with that. It's right here in the Bible. If you break into my house and I kill you, which I will, not my problem. So saith the Lord. Same thing goes for your house. If the sun has risen on him, there is guilt for his bloodshed. He shall certainly repay. If he has not the means, then he shall be sold for his theft. Which again, how do we get into servitude? There's one way. If you steal from me and I catch you and you can't repay, now you're in servitude. And that is only up to and including 7 years. After that you go free, unless it's a Jubilee year, in which case everything goes free. Which is another thing we're going to get to here in a bit. Okay, and there's a long series of teachings here where this all expands upon the 10 Commandments that was given by the Father to Moshe on the side of Mount Sinai. Okay? If the theft is indeed found alive in his hand, whether it is an ox or a donkey or sheep, he repays double. So it's not just, here's your stuff back. No, you owe me twice what you took. You took $100, you owe me 200. He repays double. When a man lets a field or vineyard be grazed bare, he lets loose his livestock and feeds it in another man's field. He repays from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. When fire breaks out and spreads to thorn bushes so that stacked grain or standing grain or the field is consumed, he who kindled the fire shall certainly repay. When a man gives silver or goods to his neighbor to guard, and it is stolen out from the man's house, if you give something to me to protect, and then it gets stolen, if the thief is found, he repays double. Meaning the person who stole it, just like we said, we find that person, he owes you double. Okay, as we just saw earlier. However, if the thief is not found, then the master of the house, that's me, shall be brought before Elohim to see whether he has put his hand into his neighbor's goods. Did I take from you? For every matter of transgression, for ox or for donkey or for sheep or garment or for whatever which is lost, which another claims to be his, let the matter of them both come before Elohim. We will go talk to the Father about it. And whomever Elohim declares wrong repays double to his neighbor. If you say I stole from you and I didn't, you owe me double. If I did steal from you, I owe you double. When a man gives to his neighbor a donkey, an ox, or a sheep, or any beast to watch over, and it dies, or is injured, or is driven away while no one is looking, if I'm protecting your flock, let an oath of Yahweh be between them both, that he has not put his hand into his neighbor's goods. I didn't take your stuff, bro. I swear to the Father. Which is why it says in Exodus 22, or Exodus 20 rather, basically don't take my name in vain. That's what it's talking about here. Is that when you make an oath unto me, you better let it be true. And it should be that when you speak and you attach Yahweh's name to it, You don't need any more frills than that. You don't need any big invocations. You don't need any of that, right? You should speak with such authority and be such a person of honesty and integrity that when you speak and you attach Yahweh's name to it, it's understood. That's the way that it is. Let an oath of Yahweh be between them both, that he has not put his hand into his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept that and does not repay. But if indeed stolen from him, he repays it to his owner. If it is torn to pieces, then let him bring it for evidence. He does not repay what was torn. Yo, dude, if coyotes tear your sheep up while they're here, I'll just show you the dead carcass. I'm not responsible for it. Did my best. Sorry. And when a man borrows from his neighbor, and it is injured or dies while the owner is not present, he shall certainly repay. Here's a rule for all your buddies that are borrowing your tools out of your garage all the time. And when a man borrows from his neighbor, and it is injured or dies while the owner of it is not present, he shall certainly repay. Hey man, I don't know what happened to your chainsaw, man. It just burned up while I was using it. You owe me a chainsaw. Well, if I had money for a chainsaw, I would have bought one in the first place rather than borrow yours. You owe me a chainsaw. Figure it out. Well, no, you don't get to get mad about it because it says right here in Exodus 22, when you borrow my stuff and it breaks, you owe me. Okay. But if the owner was with it, he does not repay. Aha. If it was hired, he is entitled to the hire. If you rent my chainsaw and you break it, I'm entitled to the rent on it, bro. And when a man entices a maiden who is not engaged and lies with her, he shall certainly pay the bride price for her to be his wife. Oh my gosh, daughters and shotguns is what comes to mind there. And if a father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he pays according to the bride price of maidens. You're not having my daughter. You still gotta pay. But you're not having my daughter. Yeah. Shotguns and shovels, man. Shotguns and shovels. There's a lot of little holes around this property. Do not allow a practicer of witchcraft to live. Let's stop right there for a hot minute, because this seems to have been taken out of context repeatedly throughout the ages. A practicer of witchcraft. A practicer of witchcraft. I was in a metal band, the theme of which was not good. It was a black metal band, satanic in nature. I was in several metal bands, but that was the most egregious of. And we did some stuff back in the day. It's one of the reasons why when I tell you for real that spiritual warfare is real, I know it here, because there's all types of terrible things out there. And you can open a whole bunch of doors to things that you didn't know existed and you wish that you didn't know existed. And you can invite all types of terrible things into your life that have no business to be there. And by things, yeah, I mean demons. A practicer of witchcraft is somebody who is doing these things willingly and inviting them into their life. Divination, sorcery, the things that the Father tells us you don't do these things. A practicer of witchcraft. Now, I recently had somebody here who had been using a Ouija board and been into ghost hunting and doing all these things. And they had a black thing hanging on to them, and I could see it. And we rebuked that in the name of Yeshua. And it was made understood, you don't do that anymore. certainly don't bring that stuff here. Now, I'm good, because I can push all that out in the way. Not a problem. The power and authority of the Messiah, non-issue. But for him, did I stone him to death? No, I didn't. I prayed with him. Did I judge him? No, I didn't. I instructed him. Did I make him feel shameful? No, I cleansed him. I didn't. I was the conduit. The Father did all that. That's the appropriate way to phrase that. When Yeshua heals somebody, what does he tell them? Go forth and sin no more. Okay? So a practicer of witchcraft is somebody who's willfully shouldering the burden of sorcery every day, actively engaging in these things, inviting these things into their life. I'm not that. And there's lots of other people who have very storied pasts who may have been that at one time. But I'll tell you this, that person, for me, that person that I was, the person is dead. That person doesn't live anymore. And you don't have to suffer it to live, because it's not here. It's gone. I'm made new. I'm redeemed. So we ought to be real careful about the judgments that we cast on people. I'll tell you this too, I've had Christians, Big C church Christians, because of my tattoos, while I'm in line at the grocery store, not say a word to me, but just spit on me. Tell me about turn the other cheek in meekness. Tell me about turn the other cheek. Don't let them push your buttons, son, is what he's telling us. Meekness is restrained power and authority. Knowing that I could just extend my hand and shatter vertebrae. But I'm not going to, because you, through your judgment, plank speck, right? You have proved who the real disgusting one is here by spitting on somebody you've never even met before, who you have no context with, that you've judged, without knowing all the details. So shame on you. So yeah, if you find a witch within your camp that's actively practicing sorcery, sure. Make sure you know what sorcery is, though. Make sure that the person that you're dealing with, Yah forbid, they've been redeemed, because that's your brother or your sister now. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of laws and rules about how you are to interact with your brother or your sister. Moving on. I'll add one more thing. Making assumptions is one of the most dangerous things that you can do in life, because you make assumptions about me, that actually puts me in a position to take advantage of you. Now I can ambush you, because I'm so many things that you might think that I'm not, by making a snap judgment based upon how I look. I have to be mindful of that with other people, but you never know who you're dealing with, okay? One of the people that the Father put in my path to get me back here so I can do this with you was a guy named Lonnie Sawyer at Care Center Ministries in Dallas. Lonnie looks like he just walked out of cell block D. And Lonnie is absolutely on fire for the Father. And he was instrumental in pointing me back in the direction of the Most High. I could see why anybody would look at him and think, look at this scumbag. And that scumbag has got more, he's more filled up and more on fire than pretty much anybody I've ever met. And he's literally saving lives and winning souls for the Father. Yeah. Be careful the assumptions you make. Anyone lying with the beast shall certainly be put to death. Yep. He who slaughters to an Elohim except to Yahweh only is to be put under the ban. Let's have no other gods but me. Do not tread down a sojourner or oppress him, for you were sojourners in the land of Mitzrayim. Be nice to the travelers, the sojourners in the land. Excuse me. Do not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you do afflict them at all, if they cry out to me at all, I shall certainly hear their cry, and my wrath shall burn, and I shall kill you with the sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. Gee, I wonder how the father feels about that. If you do afflict them at all, if they cry out to me at all, I shall certainly hear their cry, and my wrath shall burn, and I shall kill you with sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. Pretty definitive on the subject. Do not afflict any widow or fatherless child. Where have we heard that before? Be kind to the widow and the orphan. Yeshua. Oh, that's right. You know, and yeah, we're long, so whatever, let's embrace it. Here's the deal. I was thinking about this earlier. Actually, yesterday evening. Erev Shabbat, Friday evening. The Israelites appointed Moshe to be the go-between between them and the Father, because they didn't want to see his face. They couldn't stand to be in his presence. They trembled at the thought of it, right? They said, Moshe, you go. You go. You got this, okay? And so he did. Yeshua says repeatedly in the New Testament, if you knew Moshe, you'd know me. You don't know Moshe, you don't know me. Moshe was the mediator between the Father and the Israelites. The mediator. Hebrews 8:6. Shabba-dabba-da. Can I find it? Yep, I sure can. Hebrews 8:6. But now he, the Father, has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, see, the days are coming, says Yahweh. This is all Old Testament. See, from Hebrews 8:8 to Hebrews 8:12, all of that is all a direct quote from the Old Testament, which everybody just literally bets their eternal soul on as the new covenant. It's the renewed covenant, Jeremiah 31 through 33. Yeah, go look it up. Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 33. And then compare that with Hebrews 8 through 12. For finding fault with them, he says, see, the days are coming, says Yahweh, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah a renewed covenant. Okay. Because of this covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, say Yahweh, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, know Yahweh, because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest. Okay. Hebrews 5. As Moshe was warned when he was about to make a tent, for he said, see that you make all according to the pattern shown to you on the mountain. Shemot, Exodus 25:40, which we haven't gotten to yet. But 6:8:6, a mediator. He is also a mediator of a better covenant, says this translation. He is also a mediator, talking about Yeshua. Moshe was the mediator between the Father and his people in the Old Testament, the Tanakh. The parallels of the archetypes of man between Yeshua and Moshe, and just allow me man for Yeshua. I obviously believe he is Messiah, okay? But the parallels there is huge. It's huge. They are archetypes, right? The mediator in between the Father and his people. And I just find it very striking that Yeshua tells the Pharisees and the Sadducees, hey man, if you knew Moshe, you know me. But you don't know Moshe, so you don't know me. I just find that really interesting. If you do lend any silver to any of my people, the poor among you, you are not to be like the one that lends interest on him. Do not lay interest on him. So if you lend money to your brothers, it's not for interest. So they owe you $100, you get $100 back, okay? If you take your neighbor's garment as a pledge, you are to return it to him before the sun goes down. For that is his only covering, it is his garment for his skin. What does he sleep in? And it shall be that when he cries to me, I shall hear, for I show favor. Write a sermon around that. And it shall be that when he cries to me, I shall hear, for I show favor. Do not revile an Elohim, nor curse the ruler of your people. That's a tough one. Do not revile an Elohim, nor curse a ruler of your people. I'll tell you truthfully, I don't know if Congress is the rulers of our people, but I hate their guts. Collectively. There's a few of them I've met in person. They're actually really decent people. But I don't think you can put broken people, I don't think you can put good people into a broken system and expect good things to happen. But we're not going to get political here. But yeah, maybe I need to take a second look at that. I don't like them. Not even a little bit. Do not delay giving your harvest and your vintage. Give me the firstborn of your sons. Dedicate them. Give me the firstborn of your sons. Likewise, you are to do with your oxen and your sheep. It is to be with the mother 7 days. On the 8th day you give it to me. And you are set apart men, holy men, sanctified men to me. And you do not eat any meat which is torn to pieces in the field. You throw it to the dogs. That's the end of 22. Now, I've said before, Exodus gives us a very clear image of what it is that we are supposed to be doing, right? How we are to conduct ourselves. And so we have a lot of these in today's day and age would be hypothetical situations because, listen, man, I've got 0 oxen. You probably also have 0 oxen, okay? But we have guidelines here to conduct ourselves by, right? What I've said before is that the Torah paints the lines on the field and it helps us understand the rules of the game, and I can see the goalpost at the end of the field. I know where I'm going, right? And I know when I get out of bounds, I know when I'm making progress, and I know when I'm retrograding and I'm not, and I'm backsliding. And it gives us these specific examples, playbooks. Like these are plays in the playbook. If this, then this. So that we know that we're being good to our brother, right? Yeshua, who taught the Torah, that's what he taught. And if you don't believe me, get the scriptures and read the New Testament, and anything that's in bold comes from the Old Testament, and you'll see real quick that when the Messiah teaches, what he's teaching is Torah. It's right there. It's right there in the book. I mean, it shows you chapter and verse where it came from in the Old Testament. So he taught Torah. Our Messiah taught Torah. And this is another thing that I'm going to add because we're here. You know, when it says he came not to usurp the law, to do away with the law, the Torah, but to fulfill it, you have to understand, and 119 Ministries has a great teaching on this. Canada Goose. Hear that? 119 Ministries has a great teaching on this, that there are 4 ways that prophecy is fulfilled. But the most common way that people think prophecy is fulfilled is with the conclusion of. That's not the case. And the word there that's used for fulfilled, which is plerau, which is Greek, what that means, plerau, for fulfilled, means the embodiment of. Plerau. Yeshua was the plerau of the law, the embodiment of the law, which is why when I tell you guys that he was, as Christians, we are supposed to be Christ-like. We are supposed to walk our way the way that he walked his way, okay? Our way is his way is our way. He is our shining example of how to conduct ourselves. And so when he showed up and the Pharisees said, "You're here to do away with the law," they said, no, don't get it twisted. You know, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. You men have totally messed up my Father's law, and you've added all these outside rules and traditions and doctrines and dogmas of man. Sound familiar? That's what he had an issue with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. He said, get rid of all of that. If you love the Father and you love me, keep my commands. This is Yeshua talking. Keep my commands. You can do this, and this is how, because I'm not here to do away with the law. I'm here to plerau, to fulfill the law, to embody the law, so that you can see how to do this. This is how you do it, to put a smile on the Father's face, so that you can experience his myriad blessings. And that's what Exodus does, is lay this out for us, the if-then. If this happens, then this happens. And truthfully, I'm glad, very glad, that there's situations in here that I don't have to be involved in. If I ever find myself in those situations, at least I'll know what to do. Praise the Father, I don't right now have to do any of that. Praise the Father, neither do you. And I really hope and pray that we never do. There are a lot of prepper channels that are just waiting for the doom and gloom. No thank you. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I do not want things to get sideways. My sheep know my voice, and they eat pine limbs that are on the ground and walk on I-beams. Okay, cool, good sheep. I'm blessed. I don't want to ever be in a situation where we have to use a lot of this law. I don't want servants. I don't want to be a servant. Beholden to no man. I serve the Most High. The end. To the best of my broken ability. So, that's Exodus 21 and 22. And, man, I pray y'all have a great day. And if you think I was joking about the sheep, here they come. Shalom, y'all.